clearing and
come in and
the extended
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Massive tornado video today. We're gonna rank every single state, all 50 of them, based off of their tornado activity, their tornadic activity. I'm doing it because 15,000 subscribers. Thank you, that's pretty sweet. I was excited about 100 subscribers, so 15,000 is awesome. I've had a lot of people comment on my videos, yo, you don't talk about this state, you don't talk about this state. Well, guess what? I'm talking about all the states today, so no more of that. It took a while. There's gonna be some controversy, I'm sure, because, you know, everyone loves their own state, and I'm not. Every state's great. Here are the factors that I'm looking at. We're looking at number of tornadoes. Obviously, you gotta have a lot of tornadoes. I'm also focused in on like square miles. Obviously, Texas is huge, and it's gonna have more tornadoes than any state. So obviously that plays a factor. So I'm looking out for you, Rhode Island. You don't have that many tornadoes, Rhode Island. Powerful tornadoes. You gotta have a lot of tornadoes, and you have to have strong tornadoes. Colorado has a ton of tornadoes. Some of them are pretty weak, so that's gonna hurt you, Colorado. So powerful tornadoes, number of tornadoes. Fatalities do play a role, but that's kind of more of a, if a tornado happened to hit a big city, and states with more big cities happen to have more fatalities, but that does play a small factor. So we're looking at a bunch of stuff, but let's just jump into the video. But please subscribe if you want to see more tornado videos. So I'm going from the worst states to the best states, and we're gonna do them by tiers, you know, those tier list things. Well, I'm just gonna start in the F tier. And number 50 on the F tier, the worst state when it comes to tornadoes, or perhaps the best if you don't like tornadoes, Alaska. Beautiful Alaska, all those mountains and that cold weather. You literally only have 11 confirmed tornadoes with 0 fatalities, 0 injuries. Strongest tornado was an EF0. You get a tornado about once every 20 years, and it's usually a little mountain tornado, you know, up in the mountains. A little F0 touches for like 2 seconds and then goes back up. So not much. Now, I'm sure there's tornadoes out in the wilderness that no one saw. Yeah, okay, but these are confirmed tornadoes, so that's another thing that we want to talk about. Number 49 is the beautiful Hawaii. Yes, Hawaii does get a few F2s. In fact, there's a few injuries in Hawaii, 6 injuries from a couple F2s near Honolulu and on the Big Island, also named Hawaii, the Big Island of Hawaii, Hawaii. I've been to Hawaii, nice place. Went to Kauai. Number 48, the first of the lower 48 states. Number 48 is Nevada. Nevada. You got Las Vegas, you got Carson City, but you don't have very many tornadoes. 95 documented tornadoes overall. Strongest was an F2 in 1949 on April 18th. Up in the mountains, again, these are like little mountain high altitude tornadoes. Looks like there was an F1 across Pyramid Lake in 1973. And yes, 0 deaths. We've had no tornado deaths yet, so that's great. Number 47 state is Vermont. Yes, Vermont has had 73 documented tornadoes. Strongest is likely an F unknown. Who could forget 1782 F unknown tornado that had at least 1 fatality in Claremont. There's a F2 with 7 injuries on August 3rd, 1970 in St. Albans. There's an F2 with 7 injuries on August 3rd, 1970 off of Lake Champlain. Number 46. People were waiting for this one. It's California. California has earthquakes. It's got forest fires, but it does not have very many tornadoes. It does have some F3s though. A couple of F3s from the 70s out here in, I think this is the desert, I don't know. LA has been hit by a few F2s, but 0 confirmed deaths. So that's great. We love to see that. Number 45 is my number 2 favorite state. I've been here, I love it here. One of my favorite states. That is Maine. Good old Maine. Maine gets about 2 tornadoes on average per year, and they've had about 142 confirmed tornadoes in their history, with on average 2 per year. There has been 2 fatalities. The strongest was an F2 tornado. This tornado way up here in the north from August 11th, 1954 unfortunately did have a fatality. 2 barns were destroyed and 1 house was thrown into another, killing 1 person. Potatoes were dug up and scattered according to weather.gov. Here's a video of a tornado path in 2017. I love these. People on the channel know I love tornado paths. Okay, so those are all of our F tier tornadoes. We're moving to the D tier. So number 44 and 43 are pretty much tied, and that's Washington and Oregon. Washington has had 127 confirmed tornadoes, and Oregon has had 126. And the worst tornado was the Portland-Vancouver F3 tornado, and this actually crossed from Oregon to Washington. So I don't know what state the deaths occurred in, but that was the worst tornado for both states. Number 42 is New Hampshire. Back over on the East Coast, New Hampshire has had 125 tornadoes and at least 17 fatalities. So things are starting to get a little more intense. And New Hampshire is a small state, so 125 tornadoes, that's quite a bit. There were 3 F3s from 1953, 1963, and 1969. There's the 1821 F unknown with 6 fatalities. Fred Lamb wrote a little book about it. I read through it for a second. It was pretty interesting. The name of the book is The Great New Hampshire Tornado, and it was described like an elephant's trunk. Number 41 is my number 1 favorite state, Utah. I love Utah, the desert, so nice. But Utah, not a great tornado state, although it does have some history. Overall, it's had 138 confirmed tornadoes, and Utah's pretty big, so maybe I should switch New Hampshire and Utah. Yeah, I'm switching these two. Anyway, sorry. 138 tornadoes, including the very famous F2 that hit downtown Salt Lake City in 1999. Only 1 fatality, and it was from that specific storm in 1999. There's an F3 on the eastern part of the state from 1993. Long path, too, near Roosevelt, Utah. So that's another. It's probably the strongest tornado in the history of Utah. Number 40 is Idaho. Love Idaho. I'm kind of a mountain guy. 229 tornadoes, stepping it up, including an F3 from June 7th, 1936 that hit east of the small town of Cul-de-Sac, close to Lewiston. There were 2 fatalities, many tornadoes down in the plains section of Idaho, another F3 near Gooding, a couple of long path F2s, including one from 2006. Beautiful state. I went to Twin Falls once. It's kind of like this little canyon. Really nice. Number 39, back on the East Coast, is Rhode Island. Now, Rhode Island has only had 24 tornadoes and 0 fatalities and 30 injuries. The worst tornado in the state was a tornado that hit Providence on August 7th, 1986, and resulted in 20 injured. Now, I know what you're thinking. How is Rhode Island being Idaho? Rhode Island is small, okay? I mean, if it was bigger, it would have more tornadoes. Number 38 is Arizona with 276 tornadoes, including an F3 from August 5th, 1957, and a deadly F2 tornado from August 27th, 1964. This was near Tucson. Unfortunately, the 2 deaths from this tornado were a mother and a child. Number 37 is New Jersey. New Jersey has only had 219 tornadoes, but it's a lot smaller than Arizona, so it's a little bit higher. It's also had quite a bit of fatalities, 24 fatalities. The worst tornado killed 6 in 1885. Number 36, back in the West, we're in New Mexico. Good old New Mexico. I love Albuquerque. Breaking Bad, but 655 tornadoes are documented in New Mexico and 7 fatalities. Several F3 tornadoes, but none had fatalities, many near the Texas border. The only F3 with a death was from May 29th, 1964. Long track F2 from June 5th, 1931. But I would say the most well-known tornado was an F2 on March 24th, 2007 that hit the city of Clovis. Dozens were injured. Yeah, you know what? I'm switching New Mexico with New Jersey. New Jersey is just a lot smaller. So New Mexico is number 37. New Jersey is number 36. Number 35, Montana. Who doesn't love Montana? And we have our first F4 tornado here in Montana. But before we get to that, there has been 450 confirmed tornadoes, 7 fatalities, and the very first F4 of the video. So this particular F4, thankfully, there were 0 deaths. There's an F1 tornado from 1923 in the mountains with 2 fatalities, as well as a few F3s in the northern eastern part of the state. Recently, 2 people were killed by a tornado on July 27th, 2010, near the town of Reserve. Montana is above New Jersey because Montana has the first F4. Number 34 is Wyoming. Love Wyoming. Cheyenne. One time I ate at a burrito shop in Cheyenne. Oregon Trail. I think the Oregon Trail a lot when I think of Wyoming. 730 tornadoes, 7 fatalities. And there's the absolute famous Yellowstone tornado from July 21st, 1987. This crossed over the Continental Divide. I mean, that's like 10,000 feet. That's high. Crossed the Continental Divide and was surveyed by Ted Fujita himself. I'm going to talk about this more in a future video, so I'm going to save it. But yes, F4. See, having these F4s is that they're pushing these two states above. Number 33 is Delaware. Never been to Delaware. 87 tornadoes and 9 fatalities. There was the 1983 F2 Hartley tornado that killed 2 women in separate mobile homes in the western part of the state. Delaware is above Wyoming and Montana because it's so small, and we're just trying to adjust for size. After Delaware is number 32, New York. 575 tornadoes, 64 fatalities. On August 28th, 1973, there was a brief F4 in both Massachusetts and New York with 4 fatalities. Appears that no tornado has ever hit the island of Manhattan yet, so that's good. But in 2007, the Brooklyn tornado was the strongest tornado to hit New York City, and fortunately, it only had 2 injuries. That's our D tier states. We're now moving up into the C tier. C tier is a little bit stronger. We're gonna get more F4s here in the C tier. Number 31 is West Virginia, which I was surprised by this. I thought West Virginia would be higher up, but no. It's kind of a little tornado bubble. Not a bad state. Blue Ridge Mountains, Shenandoah River. 178 confirmed tornadoes, 158 fatalities. There's an F4 tornado with 100 fatalities on June 23rd, 1944. Large F4 that crossed state lines. Number 30 is Connecticut with only 148 tornadoes and 41 deaths. 3 F4s, the most recent being in 1989. Highest death toll was 37 from a tornado from 1878 that hit Wallingford. Connecticut's a little bit smaller, so we're moving it up a little bit. Number 29 is Maryland. I've been to Maryland, been to the Naval Academy. 442 tornadoes and 73 fatalities. There's been 3 F4s. One recent tornado from April 28th, 2002 killed 3, known as the La Plata tornado. The deadliest was on November 9th, 1926, when another F4 killed 13 school children and 4 townspeople. Number 28 is Virginia. 865 tornadoes, 102 fatalities, 2 F4s. Worst/most famous is the August 6th, 1993 Petersburg Colonial Heights Hopeville, Virginia tornado. Deadliest was an F3 tornado in 1959 that hit the town of Ivy on September 30th, killing 10. Number 27 is Massachusetts. Massachusetts. I was surprised by Massachusetts. It's probably the most active New England state. 223 tornadoes and 4 F4s. Dang. One deadly F4 from June 9th, 1953, known as the 1953 Worcester tornado, with 94 fatalities. This tornado was considered an F5 for a while. In fact, they had a panel in 2005, and they talked about whether it should be an F5 or an F4. They decided it should be an F4. But Massachusetts surprised me big time. But 1953, not a great year for tornadoes. One recent example is the 2011 New England tornado outbreak. On June 1st, 2011, an EF3 went through Greater Springfield and resulted in 3 deaths. Number 26 is Florida. Florida is a big state. There's a ton of tornadoes in Florida, 3,805 tornadoes, but most of these are super weak. 212 fatalities. One F4 went across the entire state on April 4th, 1966 with 11 fatalities. A recent F3 from February 2nd, 2007 killed 13 and was part of the Groundhog Day tornado outbreak. This is known as the Paisley-Deland tornado. Another F3 in 1998 killed 25 on February 23rd. This is known as the Intercession City Port St. John, Florida tornado. This specific tornado hit the Ponderosa Pine RV Park, and that's where many of the deaths occurred. So there you have it. Those are your bottom half. We're in the top 25 with number 25, North Carolina. They have recorded 1,552 tornadoes with 264 fatalities. There's the Greensburg 1936 tornado with 14 fatalities and Greenville 1984 with 16 fatalities. One recent example was from 2011. It was the Sanford-Raleigh, North Carolina F3 tornado with 6 fatalities. I did not know that North Carolina had so much tornadic activity. Number 24 is South Carolina. Yes, South Carolina is above North Carolina, with 1,287 tornadoes, 466 deaths, 16 F4s, the worst being an F4 from April 30th, 1924 with 53 fatalities, the Steedman-Horrell Hill Gaylord Crossroads, South Carolina tornado. It's above North Carolina because South Carolina is smaller, even though it has less tornadoes, but it does have more F4 tornadoes. Number 23 is Pennsylvania with 1,032 tornadoes, 237 fatalities, a little bit less in South and North Carolina, but it does have an F5 tornado, our first F5 tornado. That is the Niles Wheatland F5 tornado, and has 13 F4s. There's also a northern F4 that took the lives of 16 people on May 31st, 1985. 69-mile path, which can easily be seen on Google Earth. It's pretty crazy. And even remnants today still exist out in the forest of this path. Okay, 22. Now we're starting to head into Tornado Alley. A little bit. Number 22 is North Dakota with 1,702 confirmed tornadoes and 98 fatalities. Of course, there's the famous Fargo F5 tornado of June 21st, 1957 that had 10 fatalities. There's another F5 in 1953, 18 F4 tornadoes, so quite a bit of F4 tornadoes as well. Number 21, Colorado, back in the mountains a little bit. A lot of tornadoes in Colorado, 2,380 confirmed tornadoes, 37 fatalities, several F4 tornadoes, very beautiful tornadoes. I mean, Colorado has gorgeous F0s, F1s, F2s. There's the super famous, I don't remember what town it's near, so I guess not that famous, but the most popular video on YouTube of a tornado is of a tornado in Colorado from Reed Timmer. That video is ridiculous. Number 20 is Ohio, and I feel like this is where the controversies are going to start coming in. People are going to have opinions because these states are a little more serious with tornadoes. 1,411 tornadoes, 531 fatalities, 4 F5s. The most famous is probably the Xenia? The Xenia tornado during the 1974 super outbreak. Or perhaps it's the Niles, Ohio, Wheatland, Pennsylvania tornado that we talked about earlier from May 31st, 1985. 18 deaths with that one, super far east. Number 19 is South Dakota. South Dakota is a lovely state. Been there a few times. 2,028 tornadoes, 155 fatalities. 2 F5 tornadoes, 8 fatalities from an F5 that went into Minnesota on June 17th, 1944. 26 F4 tornadoes, so stepping it up a little bit. Number 18 is Georgia. We talked about Georgia before with the Warner Robins tornado, but Georgia has had 2,177 tornadoes, 42 EF4s, 1,454 fatalities. Gainesville, Georgia has been hit by 2 terrible tornadoes, one in 1903 with 98 fatalities and one in 1936 with 203 fatalities, making it the deadliest in the state. The Cooper Pants factory had 70 deaths alone, so this is the highest death toll for a single building. Number 17 is Kentucky. Yes, Kentucky. We've had a recent tornado in Kentucky. Kentucky has had 1,226 tornadoes, 798 deaths, 2 EF5s, and 36 F4s. Obviously, we had the Mayfield, Eddyville F4 tornado that went a lot of miles. That was last year at the end of 2021 with 58 deaths, by far the worst in the last few years. Kentucky was heavily impacted by the 1974 super outbreak on April 3rd. Louisville has also been hit pretty hard. Number 16 is Louisiana. 2,543 tornadoes and 1,338 fatalities. 2 F5 tornadoes started in Louisiana but peaked in Mississippi. 1908 had a couple of severe tornadoes, but nothing too crazy. I might switch. That's a lot of tornadoes though. Louisiana and Kentucky, 16, 7, whatever. They're equal. Georgia. Louisiana's kind of weird. It doesn't have very many powerful tornadoes, but has a ton of tornadoes in general. Maybe it's like small tornadoes from hurricanes? Possibly. Number 15 is Michigan. Gotta love Michigan. I used to go up into the UP quite a bit. The UP does not get very many tornadoes, but the lower part of the state does. Overall, the state has recorded 1,232 tornadoes, 363 fatalities, 4 F5s, and 30 F4s. The most famous F5 is the 1953 Flint Beecher tornado with 116 deaths. Recently, there's a tornado this past year just east of Lake Michigan. I remember that. So it's been in the news recently. Number 14 is Tennessee. Tennessee has had 1,580 tornadoes, and it's a pretty small state. I mean, kind of. It's had 1,329 deaths, 2 F5 tornadoes, and 58 F4 tornadoes. In 1998, there was a recent tornado outbreak and an F5 tornado with 12 fatalities. 38 fatalities from a 1952 tornado. Recently, a night tornado, an F4 from March 3rd, 2020. This was like right at the beginning of the and it was at night. Went from Nashville into Cookeville. Was the deaths occurred in Cookeville. Probably going to do a video on that, so stay tuned for that. Murfreesboro, Tennessee seems to be a slight tornado magnet as well. They had a tornado as recent as April 10th, 2009. Number 13 is Arkansas. I went diamond mining once in Arkansas. That was, I didn't find any diamonds, but it was a good time. 2,419 tornadoes. 1,786 fatalities. Only one F5. 67 EF4s. Quite a bit of EF4s, that's for sure. The most famous is probably the April 11th, 1929 Sneed, Arkansas F5 of 23 deaths. There was the 1921 Texarkana tornado with 59 deaths. Moving on up to the A tier. We're now in the A tier of tornado states. Now these states might have a little bit of a reputation of tornadoes, just kind of in their stereotypical DNA. Okay, number 12 is Missouri. Missouri is interesting. 2,900 tornadoes, massive 2,422 deaths. Literally one of the highest out of all the states. But Missouri has not had that many F5s. Only 4, and 2 of which are in other states as well. 104 F4s though, a ton of F4s. Can't forget about the costliest tornado of all time as of 2022, and that is the Joplin, May 22nd, 2011 tornado. I have lots of videos on that. 158 fatalities with that tornado. St. Louis has been hit hard many times, way back in the day. F4 with 225 deaths on May 28th, 1896, the third deadliest tornado of all time. Weird state, hard to judge, so many F4s, not a lot of F5s, a ton of deaths. Number 11 is Wisconsin. Yes, Wisconsin. Number of tornadoes is 1,670. 566 fatalities and a lot of F5s for Wisconsin. 6 F5s. 46 F4s. So Missouri and Wisconsin are kind of weird, but since Wisconsin has a lot of F5s, I'm just gonna barely put them above. 117 died from the 1899 New Richmond tornado in the western part of the state. There was a 1958 Colfax tornado that killed 21. Number 10 is right next to Wisconsin. We're talking about Minnesota. 2,291 tornadoes, 577 deaths, 7 EF5s. That's a lot. That's a lot of EF5s. 55 F4s. We had the famous August 21st, 1883 Rochester F5 tornado that caused 37 fatalities and indirectly led to saving millions of lives because it indirectly led to the creation of the Mayo Clinic. Maybe the best tornado of all time if you think about it that way. A couple of deadly F4s, including the infamous Sauk Rapids St. Cloud tornado of April 14th, 1886. There was the 1919 Fergus Falls tornado on June 22nd. Now we're getting into some very Tornado Alley-esque states. Number 9 is Nebraska. I've driven through Nebraska many times. I don't mind it. When you go through Kearney and you see the gateway to the west, what's that called? I don't know, but 3,325 tornadoes. We're in the 3,000s now, guys. That's pretty high. 470 fatalities, 5 F5s, 77 EF4s or F4s, 2 F5s from 1908, 2 extremely deadly tornadoes on the same day on March 23rd in 1913 near Omaha on Easter Sunday tornado outbreak. One tornado had 103 fatalities, went through the downtown area of Omaha. Both of these went into Iowa. We're moving on to number 8, Illinois. Illinois has had 3,114 tornadoes, a massive 2,195 deaths, 5 F5 tornadoes, 91 F4 tornadoes, including the infamous Tri-State tornado. There's the famous semi-recent example from August 28th, the 1990 F5 Plainfield tornado with 29 fatalities. Number 7 is Indiana. Kokomo, we talked about Kokomo before, but 1,800 tornadoes, so a little bit less, but Indiana's smaller than other states, and where Indiana really pops is when it comes to 65 F4s and 5 F5s. Also, there were 1,465 deaths. The Palm Sunday outbreak of 1965, of course, the Tri-State tornado hit Indiana as well. Major target during the 1974 super outbreak on April 3rd. Over 3 F5s on that one day alone. 2 of them were pretty much in Kentucky though. Number 6. Things are going to get a little controversial from this point on. Some of these can be flipped. Number 6 is Texas. Yes, Texas. Okay. Texas has had the most tornadoes out of any other state, with 9,764 confirmed tornadoes, 110 F4s and 11 F5s. Fatalities are greater than 2,000. So why is it number 6 and not number 1 if it has the most tornadoes? Well, Texas, if you didn't know, is a massive state. It's huge. So I'm taking that into account, because obviously you're going to cover a lot of tornadoes when you're massive. Let's talk about some famous examples. Gerald, Texas tornado, Dead Man Walking tornado. This tornado, this is the one that, like, I don't know. This one, I don't want to say it's my favorite because that's bad. I don't want to say that, but I have a lot of interest in this one. Then there's the Waco tornado of 1953. There's that year again, 1953. There's a massive tri-state F5 tornado from April 10th, 1947 with 181 fatalities. This is known as the Glazier-Higgins-Woodward tornado outbreak. Also an F4 from 1979. The Wichita Falls tornado, I talked about that with the overpass video. Also talked about the Lubbock, Texas F5 tornado. A lot of people are going to watch this video are going to be from Texas, so... But yeah, that's just what it is. Number 5 is Mississippi. Mississippi has had 2,804 tornadoes, a massive amount of fatalities, 2,375 fatalities, 6 F5s, 54 F4s, including a massive 202-mile F4 from February 21st, 1971, a monster 1966 F5 tornado across the whole state dubbed the Candlestick Park tornado, named after a store that was just recently built and then destroyed in Jackson. Killed 58. Some say this was 2 separate tornadoes. Also, there was the recent Hattiesburg tornado in 2013. It also has one of the most historic tornadoes of all time. I don't know if I'm going to pronounce this right. The Natchez tornado of 1840 that killed 317 people, putting it in second after the Tri-State tornado. Officially, it is unrated, but 269 were killed on the Mississippi River alone. And then there's the 2011 Smithville EF5 tornado. This one is underrated because everyone always talks about the Tuscaloosa Birmingham tornado, but the Smithville tornado was insane as well. The Tupelo, Mississippi tornado of 1936 that killed around 230. Elvis and his parents happened to survive that 1936 tornado, so that's a fact for you, but a lot of really high death toll tornadoes in Mississippi. Number 4 is Alabama. Some people think Alabama should be top 2, but it's not. Okay, Alabama has had 2,796 tornadoes, 2,050 deaths, 9 F5s on the books, 69 F4s. Birmingham has had a ton of F5 tornadoes, one in 1998, one in 1977, and of course one during the April 27th, 2011 super outbreak that pretty much devastated the state. You have the Hackleburg-Phil-Campbell tornado, the Cordova tornado, Tuscaloosa, Coleman tornado. It's definitely a top tier state, definitely towards the top of the A tier. Of course you have James Spann, the legend. Alabama, I just drove through Alabama, I'm not even joking. Went through Birmingham and Montgomery on my way to Florida. Great football team. Okay, so number 3 is Iowa. Now you're thinking, Iowa, really, Jake? The numbers don't lie. 3,388 tornadoes, 920 deaths. Kind of low on that scale. However, in terms of deaths, Iowa's got a smaller population and not very many big cities. A ton of F5 tornadoes for such a small state. 11 F5s. 11 F5 tornadoes. 105 F4 tornadoes. The 1976 Jordan, Iowa F5, famous from Ted Fujita analyzing it. The July 6, 1893 Pomeroy F5 tornado killed 71. The 1969 Charles City F5 tornado killed 13. The 1882 Grinnell tornado killed 68, as well as many deadly F4s. Of course, the most recent is the Parkersburg tornado with 9 deaths. Iowa is a small state, and it's got a ton of tornadic activity for such a small state. That's why it's number 3, and it's at the top of the A tier because we are now going into the S tier. There's only 2 states remaining, and these states are the top of the tornado activity tiers. And you know what? They could probably go back and forth. I don't know. But I actually originally had these swapped, but after reviewing everything, this is what I think. Okay, number 2 is Kansas. Confirmed tornadoes, 5,077. Deaths, 1,040. 16 F5s. 16 F5s. That's more F5s than any state. 16 F5s through the state on 125 freaking F4 tornadoes. My goodness. There's a Greensburg, Kansas F5 with 11 fatalities from May 5th, 2007. I think that was the first EF5. The deadliest tornado was on April 26, 1955, and saw 80 deaths, the Udall, Kansas tornado. Also, the Wizard of Oz, hello. Then there's the Andover tornado, very famous tornado, has that Air Force Base footage. Okay, number one. Number one is Oklahoma. Okay, all right. Oklahoma has had 4,689 tornadoes, 1,700 fatalities, 13 F5s have gone through the state, 135 F4s. There was the 1905 Snyder, Oklahoma on May 10th. This was an infamous F5 that killed 97 people. There's the Antlers, April 12th, 1945 F5 tornado that killed 69. Of course, there's the Moore tornadoes of 1999 and 2013. Yeah. There's some legendary weathermen and meteorologists in Oklahoma. Of course, the El Reno tornado, hello, biggest tornado of all time. That's got to give you some points. Also part of that Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas tri-state tornado we talked about earlier. So a ton of tornadoes in Oklahoma. It actually has less than Kansas, but Oklahoma is smaller than Kansas. I did not know that. So I looked at the square mileage and I looked at the tornadoes, and I came up with Oklahoma as number one. But yes, that's it. That's all 50 states. Thank you for watching. Be sure to subscribe for more tornado-related videos. I'm sure people are going to disagree with me, but I did the best I can.